Today, we're plunging into, well, a subject that's really captured public attention for years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Often surrounded by speculation, um, controversy.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the long-standing and, highly scrutinized relationship between the convicted financier Jeffrey Epstein
Yeah.
and former President Donald Trump.
And our mission here really is to carefully unpack all these different accounts, the documented connections, the official statements, everything surrounding this pretty complex relationship. We've gathered quite a stack of sources, testimony from former associates, public records, legal findings, the works. And the idea is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights, to give you, our listeners, a clear, sort of balanced understanding based only on what these sources say. We're not here to take sides, especially on the politically charged stuff.
Exactly. So it's not just about if they knew each other, but digging into how deep those connections actually went. What does the documented history really tell us? What's the foundation here?
Well, what's really fascinating is just how far back it goes. We're talking decades.
Decades.
Yeah, it starts apparently in the late 1980s and carries on right into the early 2000s. And there's that pretty notable quote from Trump himself to New York Magazine back in 2002.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Right? He called Epstein a terrific guy, said he was a lot of fun to be with. And then the part about how Epstein likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
That quote, it certainly hits differently now, doesn't it?
It really does. And, on the flip side, Epstein reportedly bragged about being Trump's closest friend, even claimed he knew all about Trump's private habits. So this 2002 snapshot, before everything came out, it definitely suggests more than just a casual nod.
That's a pretty strong indicator early on. But okay, beyond their own words back then, what's the hard evidence, the paper trail? What specific documented links do the sources show?
Yeah, there's quite a bit, actually. The connections documented really paint a picture of a relationship that was, well, definitely not just casual.
Like what specifically?
Well, they were photographed together pretty frequently, at social events, parties at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's club in Palm Beach.
Right. Those photos pop up a lot.
And there's even actual footage, archival stuff from NBC News, November 92. It shows them together at Mar-a-Lago. Trump seems to be pointing out women on the dance floor to Epstein. Then you've got Trump's contact details and Melania, Trump's too, turning up in Epstein's leaked address books.
Okay, that's pretty direct.
And maybe the most talked about piece, the flight logs. Records show Trump flew on Epstein's private jet at least 7 times back in the 90s.
7 times. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyone else on those flights?
Yes, and this is often pointed out. Family members were included. His then-wife, Marla Maples, their young daughter, Tiffany, even a nanny on some trips.
Okay.
But crucially, what the records don't show, and this is important, is any evidence that Trump ever flew to Epstein's private island, Little St. James. That's not documented.
Got it. No island trips documented for Trump. And when did this friendship supposedly end?
The reports suggest it ended around 2004, apparently over some kind of property dispute. And Trump has said since then that he actually banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, so a documented social connection spanning years, flights, shared circles, ending around 2004. But then things get, well, a lot more complicated when we hear from people who are actually in Epstein's circle. Right?
Oh, this is really where the narrative takes a sharp and frankly disturbing turn. We have these firsthand accounts from women who were close to Epstein.
And their observations, they must shed a totally different light on the dynamic.
Completely different. Let's start with Stacey Williams. She was Epstein's girlfriend back in the 90s.
Okay.
And she described the bond between Epstein and Trump as exceptionally close. Her words were best friends. She called Trump Epstein's bro and his wingman, said he was the only friend Epstein talked about constantly.
Wingman. That's quite a term. And Williams didn't just comment on their friendship. She made a very specific, very serious allegation against Trump himself, didn't she?
Yes, she did, publicly. She accused Trump of groping her, essentially, in Epstein's presence. This was allegedly at Trump Tower in 1993.
Can you walk us through her account?
She described Trump pulling her close, his hands on her breasts, hips, but while he and Epstein just carried on a normal conversation, smiling, grinning at each other.
While this was happening.
That's her account. She said assistants even walked past. She described just freezing, completely in shock.
Yeah. And what about Epstein's reaction right after?
This is also striking. Williams said Epstein became absolutely seething, just enraged, yelling at her, "Why did you let him do that?"
Wow. So not defending her, but angry at her.
According to her, yes. And initially, she actually thought the whole thing might have been, like, coordinated between them. She called it some kind of weird, twisted game.
That's incredibly disturbing. Did she offer anything else, any kind of supporting details for her claims?
Well, she mentioned a postcard, claimed Trump sent it to her agent in '93. It supposedly showed Mar-a-Lago and had a handwritten note. "Stacy, you're home away from home. Love, Donald."
Hmm.
And later, when this whole other controversy came up about an alleged birthday letter from Trump to Epstein.
Right, the one with the drawing.
Yeah, that one. When Trump denied it, Williams basically scoffed, said something like, "What, are you kidding me? I know what they were up to together. It happened to me."
And has there been any corroboration of her story over the years?
Well, CNN reported they spoke to 3 friends of Williams who confirmed she told them about the alleged incident way back over the decades. Williams herself has said she took a polygraph test. And Michael Wolff, the author who interviewed Epstein for hours, he apparently confirmed Epstein talked about what they did to her.
Okay. Moving on. Virginia Giuffre is probably the most well-known of Epstein's accusers. Did her testimony link Trump's world to Epstein's activities as well?
Yes, her testimony specifically connected one of Trump's properties to Epstein's network.
Oh, so
She stated under oath that she was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago.
at the club itself.
At Trump's private Mar-a-Lago club, yes. She was 16 at the time, recruited to work as a masseuse for Epstein.
16. Wow. And wasn't there another incident involving a flight?
Right. Another accuser, Johannes Joberg, she recalled being on a flight in 2001 with Jeffrey, who was still underage then, and Epstein. The plane apparently diverted to Atlantic City.
Okay.
And Epstein reportedly suggested, hey, let's call Trump and maybe visit one of his casinos there. Giuffre apparently couldn't get in because she didn't have ID.
So Trump's name comes up in these accounts associated with locations or suggestions. But what about the big document release earlier this year? The Giuffre lawsuit files.
Yes, the January 2024 unsealing, about 950 pages from Giuffre's defamation lawsuit against Maxwell. Trump was mentioned in those documents.
But was he accused of anything in those specific documents?
No, and that's a really crucial clarification. He was mentioned along with others like Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew, but he was not accused of any wrongdoing within that particular set of unsealed papers. It's an important context.
Definitely important. Okay, what about Maria Farmer? She's significant because she was one of the very first people to accuse Epstein, and she apparently tried to warn the authorities early on.
That's right. Maria Farmer, an artist. She described what she called a troubling encounter with Trump back in 1995, this time in Epstein's Manhattan office.
What did she say happened?
She described Trump just staring intensely at her legs, making her very uncomfortable, until Epstein apparently stepped in and said something like, no, she's not here for you.
So not a criminal accusation against Trump, but discomfort with his presence and behavior.
Exactly. Farmer has been clear she never accused Trump of a crime, but she definitely expressed unease about him being there and how he allegedly acted.
And her attempts to warn law enforcement.
This is a key part of her story. She says she filed the first criminal complaint about Epstein way back in 1996, alerted both the NYPD and the FBI.
1996. That's early.
Very early. And she says she brought it up again in 2006, specifically urging the FBI to look into Epstein's whole powerful social circle, which, she stated, included Trump.
And were those warnings acted upon?
According to reports, they were largely unheeded at the time. Now, the White House, under Trump, strongly pushed back on Farmer's account of the office incident. Stephen Chung stated flatly, the president was never in Epstein's office, and added that Trump kicked him out of his club for being a creep.
So a direct denial there. Quite something that these early warnings were apparently missed.
It really highlights the challenges, doesn't it? Okay, finally, let's touch on Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's convicted accomplice. She's made some interesting statements from prison, hasn't she?
Yeah, what's her perspective on all this, especially regarding Trump?
Well, sources say she's expressed willingness to testify to Congress about the Epstein files, but apparently the U.S. government hasn't actually asked her to.
Okay. And wasn't she involved with that controversial birthday album for Epstein?
Yes, she apparently compiled it back in 2003. And that's the album that reportedly contained this letter, allegedly from Trump, with suggestive comments and a drawing of a naked woman.
The letter Trump vehemently denies writing.
Vehemently. He called it fake, false, malicious, and defamatory, said, these are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures. He's been very strong on that denial.
And Maxwell's view on Epstein's death.
She believes, much like Epstein's brother Mark, that Epstein didn't die by suicide but was murdered. Her family has also denied there's any kind of client list. And interestingly, a source close to Maxwell reportedly indicated that these Epstein files don't actually contain any big shocks about Trump.
So a lot of different angles there from Maxwell, or at least sources close to her. Okay, we've covered the long-standing connection, these really serious, detailed allegations from associates. How has Trump himself officially responded, and what have the authorities actually concluded in the, broader legal picture?
Right. If we sort of zoom out now, what you see is this consistent pattern. You have Trump issuing denials set against these broader information releases like the court documents and just intense public and political focus. It's become incredibly politicized.
How did Trump react when Epstein was arrested in 2019?
He publicly distanced himself pretty quickly, said things like he had a falling out with him a long time ago, he wasn't a fan, and he's consistently strongly denied any wrongdoing whatsoever.
And specifically on things like that alleged 2003 birthday letter.
As we said, a vehement denial. Fake, false, malicious, defamatory, emphasizing, not my words, I don't draw pictures. He's also gone broader, accusing opponents of creating an Epstein hoax.
A hoax? Who did he blame?
He claimed, without providing evidence, that files were made up by Comey, meaning former FBI Director James Comey, made up by Obama, made up by the Biden administration. So framing it as a political attack.
Okay, so strong denials, framing it as politically motivated. How does that square with things like the unsealed court documents we discussed, the ones that did mention him, even if not accusing him of wrongdoing?
It creates this real tension, doesn't it? You have the documented connections, the allegations, the mentions in court papers, and then the blanket denials framing it all as fake or political. That gap is kind of where the whole public debate lives.
Right.
And those unsealed documents, the 950 pages from the Jeffrey lawsuit released in January 24, they are a key piece. Again, important to stress. Trump was named, so were Clinton and Prince Andrew, but no accusations of wrongdoing against Trump within those specific pages.
And the Department of Justice, they wanted more transparency. They asked for grand jury transcripts to be unsealed.
Yes, the DOJ formally requested that, stating that transparency to the American public is of the utmost importance. However, you also have former federal prosecutors pouring some cold water on that, suggesting the transcripts might be pretty thin, maybe only 60 pages, and probably won't contain huge new revelations.
Okay. And what's the final word from the DOJ about the whole client list idea and whether they're investigating anyone else in Epstein's network?
This is pretty definitive. In a memo from July 2025, the DOJ and FBI stated their conclusion. There was no credible evidence that Epstein was blackmailing powerful people.
No blackmail evidence found.
According to their review, no. And they also said their review didn't turn up enough evidence to start new investigations against any uncharged third parties connected to Epstein.
So basically, case closed from their end.
It seems that way. The memo also maintained the official finding that Epstein died by suicide in 2019, and they stated clearly that no more prosecutions are expected in relation to the Epstein case.
That's interesting, especially because didn't Attorney General Pam Bondi suggest earlier that a client list did exist?
Yes, that's a notable contradiction. Bondi had previously implied a list was, quote, sitting on my desk right now to review. The July 2025 memo directly contradicts that implication.
Okay, so the DOJ puts out this memo saying no blackmail, no new investigations. That seems pretty clear-cut legally, but we know public doubt is still incredibly high. Why is there such a big disconnect? How did this play out politically?
That's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? That DOJ memo. It caused a huge backlash, particularly among Trump supporters.
Accusing the government of what?
A cover-up, essentially, accusing the Biden administration DOJ of protecting people. And Trump's own reaction was interesting.
How so?
Initially, he actually criticized his own supporters, reportedly calling them weaklings for the whole furor over the Epstein files saga.
Really? He criticized them?
Apparently so initially, but then he did a complete 180, suddenly reversed course and directed Pam Bondi to push for releasing those grand jury materials we mentioned.
Wow, quite a flip.
It really shows how this whole thing just blew up politically. The hunt for info on Epstein's associates became this massive political football, and it definitely fueled public distrust, that perception of a cover-up, regardless of what the actual legal findings were. Reports even suggest that part of the MAGI turned on Trump over this, demanding all the information come out.
So the political storm around it almost overshadows the official conclusion sometimes.
Absolutely. The official findings meet these really strong counter-narratives, both public and political, and that just highlights how complex and unresolved this feels to many people.
So after wading through all of this, where does it leave us? It's a truly complex web of connections, allegations, denials, official statements.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what this deep dive really shows is that tension, right? On one side, you have this long documented social history, the flights, the photos, plus these incredibly serious allegations from people who are right there in Epstein's world.
Right.
And on the other side, you have Trump's consistent, forceful denials, framing it all as fake or political. And then you have the official legal findings from the DOJ, which often seem to contradict the public speculation and the political narrative swirling around.
So for you listening, the challenge is navigating all that.
Exactly. It's about understanding how to process this kind of information overload, where you have these competing stories, these different pieces of evidence, and just trying to make sense of the nuances behind those big headlines.
It leaves you with a lot to think about. Here's something to maybe mull over. Despite those official conclusions from the DOJ, despite the consistent denials, why do you think this deep public skepticism about the full truth of Epstein's network and who might have been involved just refuses to go away? What does that ongoing suspicion, that intense public inquiry, suggest about trust in our institutions today?